this interview is actually with Becca Watson, who I first learned about through previous guest, the wonderful Emma Sutherland, because Becca and Emma connected via social media and they both make content on YouTube, and Becca suggested the idea of making a short film together, and I actually then went to go watch the screening of this film, their debut short film, Theresa Crowd, in London, which was such a fun event. Like, to be able to hear about the process, to meet people who were like just supporters of Emma and Becca, and also people like behind the scenes of the making of the film. It was such an interesting event. I met such cool people. It was really inspiring. The film like, it's so beautiful the way it tells the story of female friendship, of three friends as they're growing up. So it was such a nice opportunity to be able to talk to Becca about the first-time filmmaker process, but also Becca is a professional content creator, has built an audience of over 300,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is mad and very cool and impressive to be able to do, and to call that your career. Like, that takes a lot of work and strategy, so it's interesting to hear about that. And also, Becca didn't go to drama school but has still managed to train and book professional work, which is really nice to be able to amplify those voices, because I think often drama school can be the loudest and most talked about pathway, so being able to talk about other things and other ways into the industry is really important. So it was so fun to be able to talk to Becca. I had a great time in this interview and I took a lot away from it, so I hope you do too. So I will want to ask you later on a bit about your debut short film, which is very exciting, but I thought I'd ask you first about yourself and your work, because you have such a big audience on YouTube, and I know you had a foundation in music, but also your videos are so like visually cinematic, not just like audio wise. So I was wondering how you approached that and how you got to such a high level with that.
Oh my God, that's so kind. Thank you. That's really sweet. And the fact you know about my music backgrounds, that's very kind. You did some research, I
I
guess, because I
do.
don't talk about it that much at all. But yeah, that is where it all began. So I guess making like a long story short, yeah, I studied music. I When I was growing up, I always wanted to be like a singer or an actor. It was kind of that. My dad's a musician, so I'm not going to give you my whole life story because we'd be here for a while. But my dad was a musician, so that's why I always loved music. Um, and so when I finished high school, I went and I studied like singing performance at college. I absolutely loved it. But then when I graduated, it was a very weird time and I didn't know what to do with a music degree. I started thinking about musical theater and like bringing acting in. And I actually ended up posting covers on YouTube. So that was how the YouTube world began. And I just always like loved watching old school vloggers like Zoella, etc. All of that. I loved that. And so that was 2020, and there was something in me with lockdown happening where I was like, let's just experiment with more of like the lifestyle content as well and just see what happens with vlogging. And so skip, 5, 6 years later, and somehow that became a job, which is crazy, along the way. And I absolutely love it. And I do love, it's so sweet of you to comment on the cinematography aspect of things, because I think that's just something I love playing with just even a 10-minute weekly YouTube vlog. Like, it's just fun to make your life look a little bit more like a movie. But also like improving my cinematography skills along the way has been, yeah, really cool, and like upgrading equipment and everything. So and then that's kind of been the full circle thing that now I'm like revisiting the more traditional media route. So yeah, trying to break into the film and TV a bit and pivot. But yeah, always keeping up YouTube because it's got a special place in my heart for sure.
Yeah, I think that's what's really interesting about your journey, actually, because you say it's your first short film, but every video you make is like a short film anyway.
Kind of, yeah. Well, that's why I thought like making a short film was gonna be um a natural next step, kind of. Like I thought it would be somewhat achievable. but it was way harder than I thought and way more time, and the editing's completely different to a YouTube video. Even like the way you cut things, because with YouTube, I'm just cutting myself and like my morning routine, it's all very different. So yeah, doing a short film was super different. But thank you very much. That's very kind of you.
I wanted to ask you about how you got into acting as well, because I feel like lots of people talk about the drama school route, but not so many people talk about the non-drama school route. I know you did a rather short course and you've done a few different classes, so how's that experience been for you?
Oh my God, it's been great. I think I am a huge advocate for you don't have to go do the 3-year drama school route. Yeah, absolutely. It's going to offer you so many tools and it's definitely the right route for a lot of people. But for people like me, it's just a reminder like you don't have to do that. And it's obviously extortionate. It's not available to everyone. And you can still make your own path in this industry. So I did a lot of like drama school stuff when I was a kid, just like outside of school. I did drama in school, always loved it. Was a bit of a theater kid. But like I said, I chose music in the end when I was a teenager to like go professionally pursue that. So I guess the acting was kind of put on pause. But funnily enough, whilst I was a music student, I still was always sort of pulled to that industry. There was like this gravitational pull because I signed up to be an extra on loads of different like TV shows and stuff. Like there's just so much filming happening up in Scotland. So things like Outlander, which was really fun. And so that's what I was doing whilst I was a student. And I guess there was always still that bit at the back of my brain that was like, oh, I'd love to be an actor. And given, I guess, the opportunities with YouTube and kind of flexibility that it's offered me and being self-employed now, I felt this shift a couple of years ago where I was like, I could go for it if I wanted. I can like, yeah, give it a go. And so I started doing loads of acting workshops in London. We're obviously so lucky if you are based in London to have access to tons of amazing facilities and workshops. So yeah, for example, last year I did a 2-week course with RADA, which was incredible, like very humbling. Learned a lot, but it was an amazing experience. And I think just to work on your craft, to have that time was really special. And so just continuing to get better and I guess professionally speaking, a couple years ago started working on short films as well. And then it was last year that I was like, okay, I wanna see if I can make my own work and just do this a little bit, I guess, less conventionally.
That's really cool, and I've seen you've done so many short films as well. So, like, how's that experience been casting wise? Because I feel like sometimes as well, it's hard being like the brunette girl as well. Um,
Right?
there's a lot of us out here. There's a lot of people. Um, so how have you found getting those kind of opportunities, and what do you feel like you've learned from other people's sets?
Oh my God, such a good question. Um, yeah, I honestly went in blind. I had no idea what to expect when I started applying for roles, and I also felt like, am I super underqualified to even be applying? Like I didn't go to drama school, or when I first started, and I was like, I've just been an extra, which I know in the eyes of the industry is like, well, that's not real acting experience, which I think it is because you see a lot on set, but anyway. And I was kind of amazed to see that I was getting auditions or getting in meetings and then yeah being offered roles. There was the summer 2024 was when I was like, I'm gonna go for this. And so I think I did about 7 short films or something crazy. And for me, what was very obvious to me was like it's because I had good headshots, so I invested in that in order to have this like professional looking profile. I think that really helped me. And I also had like some show reel work. I know there's loads of companies that offer to like film show reels for you. So I went with one of those just to like get things moving. And I guess I also had like YouTube stuff to present so that you could see me on camera. I know that's not acting and it's not necessarily like the right thing to put forward, but I don't know if that would have helped. And then learn so much from being on set. Like I did a lot of student films as well. I think that's such a great place for new actors to start. Like, do not turn your nose up at them, because the talent that you see from these young DOPs, from these young directors and everything, you learn so much from being on those sets. And yes, you also learn like what's not maybe the best or what's not the most professional, but it's, I don't know, it's either for you or it's not. And I think that's a really good place to learn if you really want to go for this or not. So
That's so interesting. 7 in the summer.
it was like, yeah, across early summer to like early autumn time.
I've done
I
7 in my whole life.
Uh, I don't know. It was like a weird summer. I really was like, I'm just gonna apply to everything I think I'm right for, and yeah.
That's cool though. So you think it's the headshots and the material that you had to send out that pushed that to happen?
Yeah, and I think also, I mean, it was probably quite obvious, but just taking your time to even write a 3 sentence cover letter that is personal, and you obviously don't just send it out to everyone. Like, what is it about that character, or if you have access to the script, anything that resonates with you. Um, and yeah, just sort of being as professional as you can. But yeah, I think if you have like a professional looking profile and you're on places like Mandy backstage, you absolutely can get booked without having experience. So
I think that's really interesting. I really remember something I really took away from going to your screening actually was that you said that you learned so much from other people's short films that you felt like you could do it yourself. So what kind of things do you feel like were standout moments that made you realize that?
um thinking on your feet is a big one. Like, that's something that stood out to me greatly. And not to toot my own horn, because I witnessed these creatives doing it really well, or there being issues in communication a lot of the time between crew members, which happens. But just like genuinely letting yourself be creative to find the solution. If a shot's not working, or you're running, which majority of the time is this, you're running short on time, then what do you do? How do you sort of build that story and still tell that story in fewer shots or a more simple shot, or get really creative with a shot? And yeah, just the whole like organization of running a set. And I just I loved it, and I was like, I would love to try tell my own little short story one day. And yeah, thankfully I did. So
Yes, now you have. And what I find interesting as well is that you approached it from being what you call a non-writer, which I think is interesting because lots of people say, "Oh, I'll be in other people's projects because I can't write." But you've proved that there's like no excuse for that.
yeah, right? Like, no, if you do, you mean like if you're not a writer like me, you call yourself not a writer, it's still like you can go make a thing though.
Yeah.
You will figure it out. Yeah, no, exactly that. Like, I think you don't know until you try, um, which is very simple advice, but that's really the thing that stood out to me the most throughout Three is a Crowd and that whole process.
And I've looked at your video about the process of making the film and the writing and the storyboarding. So, how was that experience for you being part of a writing process as someone who hadn't really done that before and trying to structure a story and bring it together?
Yeah, that never would have happened if I were alone. So that's the biggest thing, and my biggest advice to like non-writers who want to write for the first time, or make something for the first time, is like it find a buddy, because it really really helped me and made that dream actually possible, because suddenly you have an accountability buddy, who is the wonderful Emma Sutherland, who I know you know very well. um And so we had each other to motivate each other, and she thankfully is a stronger writer than me, and has, I think she's attempted to write scripts before, and little projects prior to Three's a Crowd. So she wasn't scared to sort of to just start writing. Whereas I think I was like, where do you even begin? I'm very visual, and so I thought about the shots I'd love to try capture in this film and stuff. And so together it made the process quite nice, just like talking out these stories and what we see. And then she was the one being like, okay, so da, 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 da. Getting it down on paper essentially. Um, but yeah, like and you bounce ideas off each other. It's so fun. It makes a what otherwise would be quite a daunting task fun. And that's what it should be. That's what creating a story and script writing really should be.
For sure, it should be. And with the length of it, that's something that interested me as well. Because like you could have made something that could have been like 5 minutes, you could have made like 10 minutes, but it's 18 minutes long. So what made you settle on that length? And when you were deciding to speak to Emma about this, how much did you have an idea of what kind of short film you wanted to be making?
Yeah, I mean, actually all the advice out there is don't create your first short to be that long. Like never let it be over
Yeah.
15 minutes, which I think is good advice. But I do think like because we were so keen and we partnered up together and we just had complete delusional energy together that we could do this, somehow it came out. It was never the plan to like make it over 15 minutes or anything. It just came out with the story that we wanted to tell. We started from the very bare bones of like, let's talk about something that's really close to our hearts, which is female friendship, and something all women relate to. We've all got stories about women in our lives, and so that was like the little light bulb moment that we were like, right, we're starting there, and then we shared literal stories with each other of different conflicts and or funny moments and sweet moments that we've had with women in our lives. And that's when sort of we realized we wanted to play with perspectives and memories and how that is when you have an argument with someone and you sort of the way you remember it and everything. Um, yeah, it was just a fun sort of thing to play with, if that makes any sense. So that's where the idea was born. And then I think it became pretty obvious to us quickly that it was never going to be a 5 minute story, to do that justice, really.
I think it's such a beautiful story to tell and something that actually we don't see on screen enough because men are at such the center of so many different short films and stuff, and being able to tell a story that's a female-centered story and about friendship, not about romance, is something that you don't see very often, and you told it really well, I think.
Thank you. That's so kind. And how odd that, like, yeah, it's not really told that much because it's something so simple, but we really were like trying to think of examples where that story had been told. And we pull inspiration from like loads of things, but no, there was like always a man involved as part of the conflict.
Yeah.
We just wanted to, yeah, which is not the case for every friendship. I don't know. We just wanted to, yeah, play with that story. So.
Yeah, I think that's really nice. And I actually, you touched on something that I wanted to ask you later on. So I'll ask you now. What inspired you and what kind of reference points did you have going into making this?
Yeah, so like I said, I always was thinking way more about the visuals and shot wise, how I wanted this to look and the feeling I wanted it to have. I'm a huge fan of, well, we couldn't shoot on film with film because it's extortionate and I have no idea how you do that. And we had a digital camera, but I love the feeling that of films shot on film, and like those nostalgic, cozy, warm stories I thought would be so fitting for this. And I had seen a few months before we started pre-production, I was watching a film called His Three Daughters, which is a really beautiful story about three women, but they're sisters, Um, but it was just a story that was so real and not overly ambitious, set design wise and everything, but still left such a mark on me. Um, so that's a movie I really recommend if you haven't seen it. Um, and yeah, something that sort of focused on these three different women and how they were different and they all had their own thing to say. So I loved that. And then there was different films that I guess I just liked the feeling of. Um, and visually, I mean, not that we managed to recreate anything that looked like a real film, but we tried our best with the equipment that we had.
I think it's really beautifully told, and I feel like the sort of energy of it has that sort of nostalgic energy. So I feel like you're being a bit harsh on yourself there, but I think it's really beautiful and really nice. And how did you find the tone as well? Because I feel like sometimes it can go like really dark if you try and tell like the dark, deep truths, but there's such elements of light in it as well. So was that something that you were aware of with tone or something that just came out?
Both for sure. Like in real life, you try find humor in our darkest moments. It's so true. And when you deal with moments of conflict, moments of arguments, and I don't know, that life is never super serious. And I think working with Emma, who's such a natural comedic actor, whereas I'm not really, I think I lean more towards drama, and I love like his three daughters, more understated stories and understated filmmaking, if that's the right word. I think naturally Three's a Crowd's just us two blended together, and somehow it worked. In my opinion, I think it really could. That it's not for everyone, and I think that is something that we could have got wrong tone wise if we weren't careful, because I think it is a bit like, well, is it a comedy? It's a comedy at some points, and then it's really not at others. And that's why it was so funny in the screening to like see when people were laughing and when people were not laughing. Um, so yeah, finding tone, I think, is something we didn't overcomplicate in the start. It wasn't like we set out, oh, we're gonna make a drama or a coming of age story or we're gonna make a comedy. It really was just sort of how we came through in the story and through the writing, because it's a story that's close to our hearts. And I think that's a piece of advice I would give. Not that I'm in a place to give loads of advice. I've only made one short film, but for someone who's never done it and is interested in it, like try find a story that is close to your heart and your reality. And I don't know. Yeah, it depends how ambitious you want to be, but
Yeah, I think that is really good advice. And also, I feel like something that is really motivating from the whole story about how this film came about is that you mention this to Emma the first time you met her? So obviously you've met like other people in classes and stuff as well. So what drew you to asking Emma when you met her for the first time, do you want to make a short film? And then how did you find the team after that? Because I feel like you and Emma know such like creative, talented people that you brought into it.
yeah, I feel like I I think this whole thing's just been quite lucky, if I'm being really honest. The find me and Emma finding each other was really nice, but then the people that we've got to work with, I just feel insanely lucky. A lot of them are from Emma's side, her network of people. But with Emma, yeah, I mean, I just was a fan of her YouTube. Like I really, really liked her energy. I liked her vibe. She seemed really kind and creative and brave. Um, and it's not often that I will reach out to someone online. It's certainly not often that I'll meet up with them. But I think because I was such a fan of hers and we had been just texting a bit back and forth, like commenting on each other's videos. Something I don't know why, but something about it felt right. And it wasn't like, right, I'm gonna put this girl in a corner and be like, will you make a film with me? it it just kind of happened because I did have in the back of my head that I wanted to make a film last year in 2025. It was like my biggest goal of the year. And she just seemed like the right gal for it. I know she had done a video on how she was like, she had a short that she was writing about ADHD. So that really interested me, that she was obviously interested in making her own work. So yeah, and somehow she said yes, um, which is crazy. And then we just worked together super well. And then in terms of the people we got involved for Three's a Crowd, I mean, our DOP is her fiance's brother, so like basically her brother-in-law. She
Yeah.
just has a lot of creative people in her life, and most of the people we had on set, runners, sound recordists, were also her connections, since we were filming in Kent. And location wise, Emma sorted all of that, so that was incredible. um the thing that I brought to the table was the person that got Amelia's role. So Emily Andrews was she's an actor that I've met in class. I met her like a couple years ago. Yeah, I met her just in a London class, and we had been friends for a while. And once we had finished sort of writing the first script, the first version, we had a good idea of who Amelia was. I obviously recommended her because she was right for the role. And then yeah, we offered it to her and she did great. So
Yeah, she is right for the role. I feel like she suits it so well. And I feel like when I was at the screening, I was meeting so many people, and it's nice that everyone has such a personal connection to you both. Like, I did speak to Emma's brother-in-law as well, and it's nice to see that, like, there's that trust there when you're working together, which is really nice.
so important, yeah. So important for your first one as well, when you're like, we're not necessarily doing everything by the book. I mean, neither of us have been to film school, so definitely not by the book. We're just actors who have been on set, and so brought our experience that way. So you want people who are gonna help you somehow tell that story, even though you're hugely under-resourced. You don't have the right equipment, you don't have a gaffer. So yeah, people who got the vision, and we felt so lucky. There was one person we reached out to who wasn't part of our network already, um, and she was amazing. So yeah, just felt super lucky.
Also, running a set, I wanted to ask you about that because you included improvised elements, which I feel like technically is a bit of a whole thing. Like, I'm looking into making something, and I've been told that that's like a thing to navigate about like script versus improvised in the edit and on set. And also, about the shot list, I wanted to ask you about that. Like, I know that you're all credited, are you, as like DOPs along with like there's a list. So, like, how were you involved in that, and how did you shape it with the shots that you picked?
Yeah, great question. I feel like that was the part that I was really like, I want to be really hands-on with this, because that felt like my little department. What I was offering to Three's a Crowd, was the cinematography aspect, and just really had an idea of how I wanted this film to look and feel. So we worked together on the shot list, and it actually became very obvious quickly that we did not have enough time to storyboard everything, and we were being way too nickety-pickety with the opening scene when you're in a field and we meet Emma's character, and it just was obvious that we were really overcomplicating it. So we had to simplify the process. Um, and then you have to make it very clear to the people you're going to be working with on set. So for Xander, our DOP, and then it was kind of me and him mostly working together on set to set up shots, which is, yeah, it's a bit much when you're then have to step in front of the camera. I learned a lot, but I don't think I'd do it again. In terms of like being an actor, it's nice to not be thinking about framing, and not, I imagine you know what I mean. It's, yeah, you should
Yeah.
just think about that and that world that you're in. And so to answer your question about improv on set, me and Emma knew we definitely didn't want to be too precious about the script that we had written. I mean, we weren't married to it. It was very much like, I think the the biggest thing in a film is like, you want that dialogue to sit naturally in the actor's mouth. So Otherwise, the whole thing feels extremely staged and
Yeah.
unnatural. And it was crucial to the story that we all felt like our characters. So I guess the scene that had the most improv was it was our last shoot day, and we were doing the school scene where we're all playing like none of us are even in our early 20s anymore. um, and so we were reading through this script, and it just wasn't. I don't know. There was something sticky about it, and it was like, right, let's just not be precious about this. And if you want to take it a little bit over there or like adjust the lines there, then yeah, it suddenly made the energy on set like way more fun and way more kid like you would need to be able to replicate these teenagers in this bedroom, after school having fun. Um so I mean, I guess that's like the actor head on as a director being like, well, yeah, I don't know, it's gonna really help your story if you trust your actors to move in this world in a way that feels natural to them.
That's really good, and it's really good that you're able to have these instincts and know what might work. As you said, like thinking on your feet with that. With the shot list, then, how much did you try to control it when you were filming, and how much did you leave it up to like other people to be doing that and taking on the creative responsibility?
Shot list was very strict. That was like we had to stick to it, and we had to stick to it within time because whilst it wasn't by any means an ambitious short film, I mean it wasn't super complicated, but we're not professional cinematographers or DOPers, so it it really, I don't know, time escapes you so fast on set. And so we really had to just work with that shot list, and every single shot was on that shot list. I don't think we really had time to experiment or to try find a different angle to work with light, which was a big lesson, and it was frustrating as someone who's, I guess, used to YouTube where it's just you and the camera. Like you can do, I don't know, you can do whatever you want. Whereas this was like we were so time bound that you had to stick to that shot list, and we had to scrap quite a lot of shots as well on days where we were running behind, and it was too ambitious. So like the field scene days, all the present day scenes, that was all shot in one day. As I know, that was a good example of a day that we just packed too much into that schedule and the shot list. So me and Emma over lunch, we were like, we don't have time for that. We don't have time for that. So yeah.
A lot to think about with that, isn't there?
Yeah, it's a lot if you're doing everything, yeah.
So, finally, do you have any final advice or anything you'd like to promote on here? Apart from obviously Three's a Crowd.
There's a crowd. Yeah, it's on YouTube, free to watch. Go when you have a spare 18 minutes, go watch it. Um, I think, uh, yeah, like don't be afraid of making your own work. That's probably the biggest advice, and the thing that's really I feel really tied to that now. I feel like I've really myself and Emma, we've managed to prove that like you can make something. It doesn't have to be this beautiful Netflix production. It's not going to be, and I don't think that's ever the point of your first piece of work. I think if you can tell a story that you genuinely believe in and that you can move some people, you'll make some people relate to a story, then that's like such an honor and that's such an incredible thing. um just, yeah, don't be afraid to make your own work. I think don't get too hung up on the obstacles, lacking equipment, lacking skill. You'll learn on the job, and it is such a fun process. It's so rewarding. um and yeah, you can get better from there on in. So but
Yeah,
yeah.
I think you've made such a beautiful film out of it. So, thank you so much for talking to me as well.
No, no problem. Thank you for having me. This was very fun.
So I will leave all the links to Becca below, and also to all of the different people and projects that we mentioned. So they will all be available for you to be able to check out. So feel free to go and do that. And definitely make sure to go watch Three's a Crowd, because it's a beautiful film and it tells a story that lots of people can relate and connect to. And it's such a well-made debut short film. Like, I was very impressed, so make sure to go check that out. And I hope that you found this chat as fun and motivating as I did, and I definitely think I'll be taking some stuff away from it. For example, making sure that every time I send a tape, write 3 sentences about my thoughts on the project as well. Like, I think that's such a good idea to try out, and something that I have actually implemented since having this chat. So thank you, Becca, for that. And also thank you to Becca for having this conversation with me. And I will leave a final thanks to everyone for watching, and please stay tuned for more interviews coming up. Thank you.